The most merciful thing in the world, I think, is the inability of the human mind to correlate all of its contents. H.P. Lovecraft.
H.P. Lovecraft, an American writer known for his distinctive style of horror fiction, went on to explain this statement, that the various sciences which have taken us down their individual roads of study have so far caused us little harm. However, he argues that someday the piecing together of dissociated fragments of knowledge will open up for us such terrifying vistas of reality and of our precarious position within it, we will either go mad from the revelation or flee from the deadly light of that expose into the comfort of a new dark age. The fact that we can't piece together all the knowledge we possess is a mercy. Were we able to do that, it would unleash a vision of reality that would drive us to insanity. There are many today who have travelled further down this revelatory road than others, being able to assemble more pieces of the jigsaw than most. And it is a frustration for such people to see the majority of the world's population still in a state of obliviousness. But for the unaware, ignorance is bliss. Most don't realize this is a prison planet, and most don't see what's coming. This video is going to be short. I said in the previous one that it was going to be the last for a while, since I'm going home to Wales for several weeks, returning at the end of September. I'll be leaving in a couple of weeks' time. But the events taking place right now are just too significant to let them pass for such an extended period of time without comment from me, since they appear to be underlining the prophecies we have been talking about, in particular, the breaking of the second seal. The unthinkable has happened. If you've been following my videos, you will know that we are 8 years into the breaking of the 7 seals of the book of Revelation. And I want to make it plain that I am not coming from a religious perspective by using that source. This information comes from the YouTube channel Archaics. Now, you'll have to refer to my previous videos to get a handle on that, and to archaics.com if you are unfamiliar with it. The breaking of the seals began in 2020 with the first, the unleashing of pharmakeia on the world in the form of COVID and the so-called remedy for it. May of this year saw the breaking of the second seal, which according to the Olympiad calendar occurs every 4 years, and is the taking away of peace from the earth. And we are seeing this being played out before our very eyes, especially the recent events in the country of my birth, the United Kingdom, or the ununited kingdom these days. But the UK is by no means the only country experiencing this. We are seeing it in South America and all over Europe, not forgetting, of course, the Middle East. Following the lead of Jason Brashears of Archaics, we noted that the chaos that will result from the breaking of the second seal would be in the form of small, localized riots and protests, likely becoming violent. And this would largely come from tensions between Western cultures and Islamic populations. Though I also added that I did not rule out larger conflicts, for example, Israel and Iran. If you saw my last video, you will have been shocked to discover that much of this was planned in the early 2000s, with the timeline having stalled, but subsequently reset on a similar course. Combine that revelation, made by a whistleblower, with the prophecies of the book of Revelation, and you get a clear picture of what is purportedly going to transpire in the near future. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, if he's not coming from a religious perspective, why is he giving a nod to the Bible using the book of Revelation? Now, that's a good question. Stay tuned for my answer. I'm the Grumpy Grandpa. Now, I have been saying that Jason Breshears had indicated somewhere that the book of Revelation was ancient and did not originate with John of Patmos. But I couldn't find where I originally saw that. I am now pleased to announce that I did finally come across that section of video where I heard him say it. Here it is.
If we're going to take something seriously as an eschatological document, a prophetic document, no matter what its origin is, I know the church likes to claim many things. One of those things is the fictional story that John the Apostle was on the Isle of Patmos when he received a vision of God and he wrote down the book of Revelation. It's an absolute lie. The church made that up. It's not true. Some of the writings of Revelation are very, very ancient. They could have never been originally written in Greek. Greek is what they were translated into. Some of them were borrowed from Cerinthus, who had gathered many of the pieces of the old Sibylline oracles. So we're dealing with a text that is very unusual. And in my own presentations and published books, I have revealed to you over and over that the cipher for understanding the book of Revelation, the book about the future, the last days, the end of the world, that book must be decoded by knowledge of ancient history. Much of that ancient history is in Genesis. But you can't use history in between from ancient times to unfolding history in the last few thousand years to the last few centuries and think that you're going to be able to decode the book of Revelation. It's not going to happen. And the reason scholars know that the book of Revelation was not originally a Greek text is because it has absolutely nothing in its imagery, in the symbols, these poetic metaphors that are Greek. Nothing. What we find in the book of Revelation is a text that was translated from another language into Greek, but the symbols that are in the text itself are Sumerian and Akkadian. In any student learning their tables and tablets in the 2nd and 3rd millennium BC would have easily understood what many of these symbols were.
Now, I would like to have had more information on that, but this will have to suffice for now since it goes some way to describe how he sees this book. Now, most of what I've been putting out on the 7 seals isn't my material, and I've been continually saying that. The reason I have been repeating this is because I have seen how close to reality his interpretation of the seals are. His knowledge is why I use the book of Revelation as a foundation for upcoming events. There are other prophecies we've been looking at, such as Nostradamus and Mother Shipton. But the book of Revelation seems to be more specific and has greater nuance. What Jason has to say about the provenance of the book of Revelation makes more sense to me now, and what is happening today appears to strengthen its position as an eschatological document. Now, I'm glad I found that clip because I felt that what I was saying, as opposed to my non-religious stance, looked like a contradiction, and indeed felt like one. The big question for me now is, what can we do as people who have woken up to the events and manipulation of the elites? What can we do to counter their efforts? Well, what are the elites trying to do? I think it's obvious they are endeavoring to divide us. Divide and conquer is the name of the game. To control a population, you must keep them at each other's throats. It's much easier to manipulate a divided society than a united one. And using special manipulative methods, I believe the elites are currently preparing both the US and UK societies for a full-scale civil war. These tyrants are crafty. They haven't spent hundreds of years working out the wrinkles for nothing. They've become expert at using hidden mechanisms of inciting hatred. Increasingly today, people are perceiving a great division in today's societies, and this feeling is experienced by folks of all political and religious persuasions. So what are these methods which are being used? How, for example, are Americans and Brits taught to hate and demonize each other? Family member against family member, friend against friend, neighbor against neighbor. One of the main methods used against us is dehumanization. By deliberately dehumanizing one group of people in the eyes of another, folks are turned into haters of their colleagues and neighbors, and even into their potential killers, which is far worse. To attain dehumanization and division in society, the enemy uses the tactics of stigmatization and labeling. The far left and the far right being just a couple of them. And I can think of a lot more than that. When in reality, we are all spiritual beings. We are all consciousness with all potentiality. Don't forget, it's all down to perception, and perception creates reality. This is how they manipulate us, by manipulating our perceptions. One of the methods I personally use when I feel I'm being triggered is I look into a person's eyes, the window to the soul, and remember who they really are. They're being manipulated just as I am, but they are still eternal beings. We are individuated units of the same consciousness. We are essentially one. And this goes a long way to neutralize the toxic poison injected into my perceptions by the enemies of mankind, the true evil ones. Don't be triggered by the labels attached to individuals by these archonic forces. These labels are used as weapons of mass destruction against us, but we can neutralize them. Let us remember who they are, rather than forget who we are. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in heavenly places. Ephesians 6:12. See you in October.